You believe the same words kings whispered in times of war, mothers murmured in desperation, and broken men uttered in the silence of God also contain a code for financial prosperity. Yes, I'm saying that Psalm 23 is not just a song of faith, it is a practical strategy for wealth. The same mindset I've discovered in the more than 500 millionaires I've interviewed throughout my life. And perhaps what you lack today is not money. I shall not want. I am not just repeating a beautiful phrase etched in history. I am affirming to myself and my entire being that my source is not my salary, my business, the market, or circumstances. It is a declaration of absolute alignment, as if I am handing over the reins of my life to a direction that does not fail, while simultaneously adopting a mental posture of abundance, regardless of what my eyes see. Over decades of interviewing successful men and women, I realized they all had an unshakable conviction that provision would come, even before it manifested. And behavior show that a mind programmed for abundance significantly increases the chances of identifying and acting on opportunities that go unnoticed by those living with a scarcity mindset. But here is the question I need to ask you. How many times have you recited these words and deep down doubted them, but spent the rest of the day looking at overdue bills, feeling that weight in your chest, and thinking it might not be true for you? They repeat the verse as a ritual but never let it transform into an emotional conviction. And without emotion, there is no real subconscious programming. The faith that creates results is one that penetrates so deeply it begins to influence every decision, every reaction, every word that comes out of your mouth. There was a time when my financial life was in ruins. People I trusted let me down. So I made a decision that seemed almost insane in the eyes of those around me. Every day, without fail, I wrote and repeated out loud, with emotion, "I shall not want," 10 times. At first, it felt like a lie. I no longer saw myself as a victim trying to survive, but as someone who had resources that were not yet visible. This internal shift was the key. People started to seek me out with proposals, and I had the clarity to see paths that had previously seemed invisible. Perhaps you are now on the opposite side of this mindset. Maybe bills are piling up, uncertainty is your daily companion, and the feeling of lack is so ingrained that you believe this is your permanent reality. But what I learned, and what Psalm 23 taught long before I was born, is that scarcity is, first and foremost, a mental condition. And it is this constant, emotional, repeated affirmation that begins to reorganize how you see and react to the world. When you plant this phrase in your subconscious, it starts to act as a filter. Situations that would have once made you give up are now seen as temporary challenges. Opportunities you would have ignored begin to catch your attention. It's as if an internal radar is activated. And this is not magic. It is behavioral science combined with faith. Your mind works based on what it believes is possible. If it is saturated with images of lack, it finds more lack. If it is filled with the conviction of abundance, it finds ways to make it real. I know some will say, "But Napoleon, I can't ignore my problems. They are real." And I respond, I never said to ignore them. I said not to let them dictate your identity. There is a huge difference between facing a challenge with the mindset of someone who is lost and facing it with the mindset of someone who has already decided they will win. The first posture paralyzes. The second moves you forward. And if you are wondering if this works for everyone, I assure you, yes, as long as you decide to sustain this belief with emotion and consistency. So, do something simple yet powerful. For the next 21 days, before anything else in the morning, affirm out loud and with intensity, "I shall not want." Don't just say it, feel it. Imagine yourself living in this abundance, because this is the law that moved the great achievers I have known. Everything the human mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Something begins to change first within you. He leads me beside the still waters. because I realize they hold a secret many ignore. Prosperity does not begin with money, it begins with a peaceful mind. For years, in studying the greatest achievers of my generation, I noticed something few value. Before any external conquest, they had inner tranquility, and did not allow themselves to be consumed by the blind haste that corrodes most people. Every day I see people rushing about, saying they have no time, making fear-based decisions, skipping steps, and constantly comparing themselves to others. They live busy lives but do not move forward. Perhaps you are even living this way full of tasks but lacking clarity. The Psalm says, "He leads me gently," because it is not about being pushed or forced. It is about allowing yourself to be led with purpose. This is very different from standing still. It is the calm, decided movement of someone who does not allow themselves to be poisoned by external noise. I learned this lesson the hard way myself. There was a period when I was facing a crucial business decision. Everyone wanted immediate answers. The pressure was immense, and any hesitation could be interpreted as weakness. But inside me, there was a voice saying, "Wait, observe." I took 2 days away. When I returned, I had absolute clarity. I signed the right contract. I refused the wrong one, and that decision saved me years of loss. It was then that I understood that peace does not delay progress. It accelerates it. Modern research confirms what we already knew in practice. A Harvard Business School study showed that professionals who dedicate daily time to moments of silence and reflection make decisions that are 23% more accurate, especially in financial matters. This is because a calm mind accesses solutions that an anxious mind ignores. The world wants to convince you that you must always be running to win. But experience and data show that the true advantage lies with those who know when to stop, observe, and only then act. When I think of green pastures and still waters, I see very practical images. For some, green pastures mean having time for family without the burden of rushing. For others, it is being able to work on a project that brings meaning and not just money. Still waters are that inner state where you do not need to prove anything to anyone, where your decisions are not the result of haste or comparison but of purpose. Perhaps today you are where I once was, overwhelmed with decisions, with a mind so noisy that you cannot identify what truly matters. If that's the case, do what I did. Create moments of pause in your day. You do not have to wait until you have spare time. Stop for 2 minutes, close your eyes, breathe deeply, and say, "Lord, lead me to still waters." This simple practice begins to re-educate your mind to listen for the right direction in the midst of chaos. And I ask you, what is the point of achieving what you desire if, when you get there, you are exhausted, confused, and without peace? True prosperity is not just having resources, but having the clarity to use them intelligently and satisfyingly. This is what transforms temporary conquests into lasting fruits. And this clarity is only revealed to those who decide to trust the right rhythm, the right time, and not the reckless race. Because, in the end, haste makes you lose opportunities that only appear for those who know how to walk calmly, but with direction. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. This part has always made me reflect deeply, because here we are no longer talking about provision or rest, but about crossing crises with an upright soul. And, believe me, in studying hundreds of stories of people who achieved great things, I discovered a pattern. All of them, without exception, faced dark valleys. The valley might be named bankruptcy, illness, betrayal, loss, rejection, but it is inevitable. What changes the outcome is how you cross it. Many believe that courage is the absence of fear, but I learned that courage is deciding to move forward even with fear screaming in your ear. I remember a period during the Great Depression when my projects seemed to be crumbling. Investments I thought were solid collapsed, people pulled away, and the uncertainty was so dense you could almost touch it. It was during this time that I began to write Think and Grow Rich. I could have waited for the right moment, but I understood that this moment would never come if I did not take the first step. So I wrote, day after day, while still in the middle of my own valley. I ask you, how many dreams have you left behind because fear told you it was too risky? How many decisions have you postponed because the valley seemed too dark? Often, what you call prudence is actually fear disguised as logic. And fear is treacherous. It paralyzes, distorts your vision, and convinces you to accept a life smaller than what you could live. This is exactly why I dedicated an entire chapter of my work to the 6 basic fears that destroy achievement: the fear of poverty, criticism, sickness, losing someone, old age, and death. All of them originate in the subconscious mind and feed on negative experiences and limiting beliefs. But see, the psalmist did not say he did not feel danger. He said he would not fear evil. There is a profound difference between feeling fear and allowing it to control you. When you decide that fear will not dictate your steps, something changes. It is as if with every step into the valley you are reinforcing, I know where I am going, and I know who is with me. And here is a precious detail. He does not call this place the valley of death, but the valley of the shadow of death. And a shadow only exists where there is light. This means that what threatens you might not be the end, but merely the shadow cast by something greater that is still ahead of you. I have seen people cross valleys and come out stronger, and I have seen others get stuck there for years because they decided to stop halfway. Those who conquered, like Thomas Edison, who failed more than 1,000 times before creating the light bulb, or Walt Disney, who was rejected by dozens of banks, had something in common: an unshakable faith in what they were seeking. They felt the fear, but they did not let it be the driver of their decisions. Perhaps your valley today is a financial crisis, an unexpected diagnosis, the loss of a relationship, or a project that collapsed. And I tell you, there is no need to wait for fear to disappear to move forward. It might even walk alongside you, but you decide who holds the map. True faith does not instantly eliminate fear but reduces its power over you. It is a leadership over your own mind. So look at yourself now and ask, in what area of your life have you stopped because of fear? What decision are you waiting for the perfect moment to make? What idea have you suffocated because you thought it was too risky? Perhaps today is the day to take a step, even a small one, but in the right direction. Because crossing the valley is not about speed, it's about constancy. And when you keep your eyes fixed on the promise and not the shadow, you discover that the valley was not the end, but the inevitable path to a higher territory. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These words are not just a poetic ending, they are the seal of a life that has understood the true meaning of prosperity. Here, we are no longer just talking about momentary conquests, but about something that remains, that echoes far beyond our own existence. It is about living in a way that goodness and mercy are not sporadic events, but daily companions. The fruits of a life aligned with a higher purpose than the simple accumulation of possessions. Throughout my journey, I realized that true prosperity is not measured by how much you have, but by how much you leave behind. I saw business people who lost entire fortunes yet still maintained respect, influence, and relevance because they built on a foundation of solid values. I also saw others who, even while accumulating wealth, died forgotten because they left nothing that inspired or benefited others. This is where this verse becomes so powerful. It speaks of constancy, of living intentionally so that the impact you have on the world does not depend on circumstances but on what you have decided to be every day. There was a moment when this understanding became very personal for me. A young entrepreneur once approached me and said that reading Think and Grow Rich had saved not only his business, but also his marriage. He applied the principles not just to business but to family life, and it transformed everything around him. At that moment, I realized that my greatest asset was not the money I had earned over the years, but the lasting effect my ideas had on people's lives. This was the moment I understood that true legacy is measured by the trail of transformation you leave behind. Today, science confirms something we already sensed. Research from the University of California shows that people who live with a clear purpose and actively contribute to something greater than themselves have higher levels of well-being and satisfaction until the end of their lives. This is because living guided by values and a mission creates a cycle of meaning that money alone could never offer. And I ask you, what will follow you when the spotlights fade? What will remain after you are no longer present to control or manage? Goodness and mercy cannot be bought. They are cultivated. They are reflections of a life that chooses, day after day, to act with integrity, generosity, and vision. When you decide to live this way, you do not need to chase approval or recognition. They become a natural consequence of your character. The psalmist ends by saying he will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, and this house is not just a physical place but a state of mind. It is the peace of someone who lives aligned with eternal principles, which do not change with trends or public opinion. It is the security of knowing that your life has a firm axis, even when the world around you is moving. If you understood this message, you know that you can continue working, dreaming, and achieving, but now with the awareness that every step you take builds not only your story but also a legacy that will inspire others long after you are gone. Because in the end, true wealth is this: living in a way that, when people look back, they can say your life was a source of goodness, mercy, and transformation. And that is something no market, high or low, can take away from you. If there is anything you should take away from everything we have discussed here, it is that Psalm 23 is not just a text of comfort. It is a map of mindset for prosperity, direction, courage, and legacy. And when you decide to apply these principles practically, day after day, you begin to transform not only the circumstances around you but your very identity. This is how true change happens, from the inside out. And if you want to keep climbing, now is the time to take the next step. The video that is appearing on your screen will take you one more step on your journey of wisdom, so you can become at least 1% better than you are now. If this content resonated with you, consider supporting the channel by clicking the thanks button and becoming part of our community, with a subscription and priority for upcoming videos. This helps us carry this message even further. I thank you for making it this far, and I'll see you in the next video because your growth journey is just beginning. See you there.